Okay, let's see. 2.2 cellular respiration. Still using the school keynote slides, so I didn't make this. You don't get the humor. That's all right. Uh, so cell metabolism. There are two types of cell metabolism, but first we need to understand what metabolism is. Metabolism equals all metabolic reactions involve changes in energy. We also call metabolism all the reactions needed for a cell to survive. And there are two types. A, anabolic reaction, this is synthesis. So you're making something, and catabolic reactions, you're taking one thing, and you're breaking it down into two. So anabolic, catabolic, just need to remember the name. And next we get to autotroph and heterotroph. Autotroph make their own food. So we know that all life needs sugar of some kind. Like we take glucose, we get the glucose from, if you're Asian, you have rice. If you are Italian, you have pasta. We get uh, sugar from our food, like carbohydrates. That's sugar. And we eat our sugar and we turn that sugar into the ATP energy we need, right? But plants are different. They don't eat any carbohydrate. They take the energy from the sun here, from the sunlight, and they convert it into their own glucose. Now, where does like cows and sheep get their sugar from? Well, from the plants that has got the sugar for their own survival. But now, since the animals have eaten that plant, they are able to obtain that sugar and turn it into usable ATP energy. So autotrophs are basically organisms that make their own sugar, and heterotrophs are um, organisms that obtain their sugar from other organisms. Now here we see sunlight for photosynthesis. Sunlight is needed for, well, light is needed for photosynthesis, not just sunlight, not necessarily sunlight, just light. So sunlight energy, uh, through the process of photosynthesis in chloroplasts, can make stored chemical energy in bonds, and that is sugar, glucose, that is stored chemical energy. And through respiration in cytoplasm and mitochondria, now the plants does both of these two reactions, photosynthesis and mitochondria. Uh, I mean, and respiration. Photosynthesis and respiration. Plants do both of these, but animals only do respiration because they obtain the sugar from the plants, and then through respiration, the sugar is turned into useful chemical energy in the form of ATP. Here's the equation for photosynthesis, and here's the equation for aerobic respiration. You can see glucose, which is the sugar, needs oxygen. That's why this is called aerobic respiration. So when there's oxygen, glucose plus oxygen, this turns into carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP energy. And respiration is like the opposite of this, except you take out the energy on the other side. So you basically swap the the words on both sides. So that on that side, and put these two on that side, and you have equation for photosynthesis. Now that sounds easy, right? But this is what it actually looks like. Pretty complex stuff. Just long, just a long process that we don't need to know at this level. But if you study biology in university or something, you will need to memorize this long process. I don't even know what to call it. Citric acid cycle. Sounds very different, very complex. And there's anaerobic respiration, also called fermentation. So the difference is there's no glucose on the reactant side. I mean, there's no oxygen. There's still glucose, but there's no oxygen on the reactant side. This means there's no oxygen. That's why it's called anaerobic respiration. In plants and yeast, this can make ethanol and carbon dioxide. So this is alcohol fermentation, and this is used for making bread, making wine, fermenting any stuff, any stuff. That needs to happen in a room, in a sealed container, usually without the presence of oxygen. But in animals, like uh, like when we run 400-meter, when at the end of the 400-meter race, if you've done one, you feel your muscle just getting super sore. Like it's absolutely the most painful feeling in the world. It's just absolutely the worst. And it puts you in a lot of pain. And what's causing that pain and soreness is actually the lactic acid that has been building up from all the anaerobic respiration because your body isn't able to perform enough aerobic respiration because you're not breathing in enough oxygen. Right? You're running, and so in animals that's lactic acid, and it's bad. Makes you feel sore. And usually energy released from aerobic respiration is 36 to 38 net ATP, but we usually just say 38 net ATP. That's what we have come agreed to writing down in exams and tests and stuff. But for anaerobic respiration, it's always 2 net ATP. Okay, right. Just a little more about ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Now, when the phosphate, so it's made up of three phosphates, and these three phosphates are joined by energy storing covalent bonds. When we use the ATP energy, one of the bond, the one phosphate on the end is going to get, as you can see down here, right, detached from the ATP, making ADP and the phosphate. So adenosine diphosphate and the one phosphate that has separated from this molecule. Now, through respiration, we reinstall this phosphate to the ADP, making ATP. Now we can use this way through respiration. Yeah, making new ATP. So that's some fun fact. Fun fact: formation of ATP. Uh, yeah, we don't need to know this. Releasing energy from ATP. So hydrolysis, when a large molecule like ATP is broken down into smaller molecules like ATP, ADP, and phosphate by reaction with water. And that's where we get the energy from the breaking down of larger molecule into smaller molecules. Pretty cool. Input and output needs of cells. Okay. So in order to survive, cells require an input of matter, including gases, simple nutrients, and ions, and the removal of wastes. Well, not going to cover that right now, maybe in the next video, but for now, that's all. All right.